Well, good evening, everybody. Alan Slaughterzinski for the Brevard Sports Network, and welcome back here to the Ubrzati UCF Nights weekly show with our special guest, Mr. Trace Trylko from Sons of UCF. And again, if you haven't had an opportunity to check out the podcast and all of the great content that Sons of UCF and Trace and his crew provide, please be sure to do that. And throughout, of course, this broadcast here, you will see all of that information flashed up on the screen. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Week one, a big success, Trace, and I don't think that anything happened last week that we didn't think was going to happen. First of all, welcome. UCF gets the win. We even said, Trace, that UCF should probably put up about 550 to 600 yards of offense. They did that. John Rice, Plumlee, and company with an outstanding debut. There's some things we'll talk about that I think they need to clean up, but for the most part, just a great week one for the Knights.
Yeah, as you mentioned, some 600 yards of total offense, a 56-10 win over South Carolina State, the debut of John Rice Plumlee at quarterback, throwing the ball, rushing the ball, plenty of touchdowns. You come out of the game with no significant injuries, and now the Knights have something to build upon with a big Friday night game, a revenge game for the Knights against Louisville in the Bounce House. But all in all, 1-0 to start the season in a game you expected to win, and you got to see John Rice Plumlee excel on the field.
All right, let's just take a look at this one. I mean, when you look at the statistics in this, I mean, even the third downs were good. 9 out of 15 on third down, 600 total yards. The offense in terms of passing and rushing were balanced, 308 to 292, respectively. Trace, the only thing that for me was a concern in this one were the penalties, 10 for 85. That needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely needs to be cleaned up. At his Monday press availability, head coach Gus Malzahn made specific reference to that. And, you don't want to beat yourself, right? There were some other areas, that you could take a look at. Special teams, which we may discuss, not so special throughout this contest. And also some question marks, perhaps, along the offensive line. Some new faces in there. How did they come together? How did they gel? And does that pave the way for the rushing attack? Will they be able to do what they need to do, not only to protect John Rice Plumlee, but open up holes for the running game? So some questions there. You're going to come out of a game one. You're always going to have some things you want to talk about and look at. And they have that extra day. They had the game on Thursday against South Carolina State. They play Friday with Louisville. Meantime, Louisville loses on the road at Syracuse on a Saturday night. So a little bit shorter week of preparation for them, a little bit more for the Knights. Will that make a difference? You got a Louisville team now, 31-7 losers at Syracuse, 0-1. Their season could go in a bad direction very quickly with a loss in Orlando on Friday. So, they're looking to right the ship.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Go ahead. I want to get your thoughts on those special teams because, Trace, it is the difference for a group of 5 team that could go undefeated to making the college football playoff or not. So tell me what your thoughts are on what you saw from special teams on Thursday night.
Well, I just describe it as a mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
A block punt, a missed field goal, rushing out towards the end of the first half to attempt a field goal from senior Daniel Obarski, and it misses. Already a fan base that, based on an uneven performance from him through the last couple of years, does not have a great deal of confidence in him needing to make a clutch kick. Again, you win 56-10. It doesn't come down to a field goal, but, there are going to be a game that likely does, and do you have the confidence in him? And then, maybe the return game isn't exactly what you want to see. So still things that need to be developed there, but it was a game with special teams breakdowns that cost them at Navy last year. So When you put your guard down, coaches say it's coach talk, all 3 phases of the game. You don't want the special teams phase of the game to cost you a victory.
I thought it was interesting. The first touchdown of the game, Javon Baker on a pass from John Rice Plumlee. Boy, that was that to me was kind of the microcosm of the Knights off season, right? There's the transfer portal in and of itself right there coming to fruition at the end of that first drive, Trace.
Yeah, the influx of transfers, UCF amongst the leaders in bringing in players, and they make a difference immediately in game one. The Ole Miss transfer at quarterback, John Rice Plumlee, Javon Baker, the wide receiver from Alabama, and others, Keymore Gamble,
Yeah.
the Florida transfer. And you can see how through the transfer portal, UCF has remade its roster, filled in some holes. And boy, what a difference the team looks a year removed from when they last played Louisville, which was a Dylan Gabriel game, of course, in which he was injured at the conclusion of the game. He now at Oklahoma. So you can remake your roster. What have we said about the transfer portal? It's a free agency, right? So,
Yep.
you're going to lose some guys, you're going to pick up some guys, and it's the job of coaches to keep as many guys happy and interested in playing time and what minutes they receive on the field and the opportunities that they make of those minutes. So transfers, a big story in that first game.
I want to talk about the defense because they hold the Bulldogs to 56 yards passing in this one. To me, just utterly impressive. I thought that Gus Malzahn, even in his post game, that's the first thing he touched on was the defense. Talk about the play of the, and again, I know it's the South Carolina State Bulldogs, but look, we've seen the Knights give up big chunks of yards to teams like the South Carolina State Bulldogs in the past. Wasn't the case so much here.
Well, you saw the step up in the defense last season under head coach, defensive coordinator Travis Williams. And they have the makings of being a very strong unit this season. No disrespect to South Carolina State, but
No.
personnel-wise, they're overmatched. UCF did what it needed to do. They give up the 10 points, but those are on shortened fields following turnovers and the like. So they kept them contained. They didn't get beat. Bigger challenge, though, with Louisville, the bodies that they have along the line, and, of course, quarterback Malik Cunningham, who the Knights struggled to contain last year in Louisville. So, you look at this game against South Carolina State, if you think about it in terms of like the NFL, a preseason game. You give some guys some playing time, you work through some things. You can only accomplish so much in practices and scrimmages during the preseason camp. So this is live game action against a FCS opponent. And now the season really gets underway, and a tall task it is. A much greater opponent for the Knights coming from the ACC and the Louisville Cardinals. So defense did what it was expected to do in game one, but we'll learn more about them in game two.
All right, let's transition to this game coming up Friday night. It's going to be, again, this is, to me, this, first of all, the information for the game is on the screen there. It's coming up this Friday night, 7:30. For those of you that cannot make it to FBC Mortgage Stadium, the game will be on ESPN2. If you're looking for the radio, if you're stuck in your car, 96.9 and 740 The Game. We're here with Trace Trylko from Sons of UCF. And Trace, this is an interesting lead up to this one to me because this is a revenge game for the Knights, but Louisville looked absolutely horrific against Syracuse. Malik Cunningham, who coming into this season was a dark horse Heisman candidate, if you will. 16 of 22, 152 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks in that game against Syracuse. To say that it was a tough week for Malik Cunningham in week one would be an understatement. But this is a very, very talented quarterback. And look, Louisville, yes, the Knights, this is a revenge game for the Knights, but Louisville is going to be looking to be coming out with guns a-blazing in this one, Trace. What do you expect to see from Louisville this week?
Well, again, that big jump from week one to week two, what jump can Louisville make in its second game? Things did not go well for the Cardinals at Syracuse, and I don't think anybody expects Syracuse to be a league leader in the ACC. So they were able to run the ball on Louisville, and Louisville was not able to do a whole lot. Only putting up 7 points at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Do I expect them to come out more fired up? Certainly. This is a home game for UCF, going to be a sold-out, packed bounce house on Friday night. Remember, when we talked preseason about the schedule, UCF's 4 losses, all 4 of those teams come to Orlando this year. And UCF really was in a position to win that game at Louisville last year, despite the great play of Malik Cunningham in that game. So the Knights have a challenge, and I don't know how challenged they were against South Carolina State. Can they contain Malik Cunningham, limit what he can do to beat you? He can use his legs to move the ball. Can they get pressure on the outside, contain him? That's going to be something to look for. And whether the secondary is tested certainly more than it was in game one against South Carolina State. Strength of this team, though, has going into the season looked like defense. Certainly, they're going to get a test here, and this is their time to prove that all that talk going into the season was accurate. That they have shut down corners, that they're strong along the defensive line. Some question marks about linebackers, so we're going to get to see what they do in this game as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste and company handle Malik Cunningham in this one, because obviously Trace Cunningham is one of these quarterbacks. You got to spy this guy. You got to keep eyes on this guy at all times, because he'll beat you with his legs. There's no doubt about that. So I'm definitely interested. What do you think defensively is the game plan for the Knights going in to stop Malik Cunningham? Because I expect him to. Now, look, the Knights are 6.5-point favorites, undefeated at home last year, and I think they're 21-2 at the Bounce House since 2017. So, I mean, Louisville may as well be going into one of these, SEC places, for all they know, because that's what this atmosphere is going to be like for them. What is this defensive game plan specifically to stop this offense of Louisville?
It's interesting because coaches, players, they want to stay focused one game at a time. But you heard during the media availabilities, they also have this one circled. They know they let this one get away. And Travis Williams, be interesting to see what he learned from what the Knights did or did not do in that game last year in Louisville. Game plan, right? It centers around Malik Cunningham. They keep talking about not giving up long plays. They're going to have to, as you mentioned, spy and keep an eye on Malik because he, like John Rice Plumlee, can pick up a first down, can pick up a big gain with his legs. So it'd be interesting to see how much of that Syracuse game applies here and whether the Knights can contain Cunningham. Do they want to get in a big shootout with Louisville? You saw what happened when they got into a big shootout last year in Louisville. They ended up on the wrong side of that. So this is going to be a big test for the defense. I think it centers around whether you can, contain Malik Cunningham or do you allow him to beat you? And so if you can do that, you're probably going to come out of there with a victory.
I can still remember the restaurant I was at last year when this game was played. The touchdown pass from Dylan Gabriel, and I apologize, but I cannot remember who he threw it to. But I think it was about $1.50 to go in the game, tied it up at 35-35, and then the interception return for a touchdown to give the Cardinals a 42-35 lead, which is obviously the final margin of victory. But just a heartbreaker last year for the Knights. And look, they're 6.5-point favorites. I like that fact. I like the fact that this game is at the Bounce House. So here comes the question, Trace. The three keys to a Knights win this week are?
Improved play from John Rice Plumlee. And I know that sounds strange considering the day that he had, but better decision-making on his part. Don't want to throw balls into double coverage. Establishing the run game. Isaiah Bowser had some 70 yards, but quite a few carries. I don't think most Knights fans expected him to carry the ball as many times as he did against South Carolina State. And that third key is containing Malik Cunningham. So I think if they do that on defense and the offense continues to show improvement with good decision-making by John Rice Plumlee, running the ball, controlling the clock, getting those first downs, and making the most of your scoring opportunities, I would lay the 6.5 points. I think the Knights can come out of there with a victory based on what we saw in week one. If you'd asked me this